circumstances that we're talking to. I see Tatu's struggling to get in. Let's keep letting him in. Okay, so I'm Tim Holmes from Sirdar, and for those of you who haven't heard of us before, Sirdar is the name we give for the lead Sherpa on a mountain expedition. We don't have any pictures of mountains in this presentation because it's Rowan's slides, but the context is we help you achieve your summit by supporting your board, supporting your directors, and supporting the company as an overall. And one of the topics that's coming up a lot is about complexity, and then and Rowan, we've got an opportunity to hear about him about engineering enduring performance. So if you are not on mute, please put yourself on mute. I've known Rowan for how long is it now? It's a long time, Rowan.
Decade.
And we've been working with him with various iterations of the Lockstep journey. We did a presentation a year or two ago about the stresses that CEOs have, and he's been doing a lot of CEO coaching for quite a number of years, and it was really, really good conversation about the mental stress, the loneliness, how important it is for CEOs to have some coaching and some understanding and some backup to help them develop themselves and to really understand how they can perform. And now we're talking about engineering enduring performance by working out what we need to do now that can make a significant difference to the performance of ourselves and our organizations in the future. And I'll hand over to Rowan really to introduce himself, and then let's get into it. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, Rowan.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, everyone. Good to be with you. Thanks for taking the time out. I'm very hopeful of making this a potentially transformational hour for you. What I'm going to talk about is no small thing, and it might give you a profoundly different understanding of what businesses are and how businesses operate best. I could describe myself in a lot of ways, but what I would say is that I am an absolute nerd for businesses, for performance. The questions about why businesses work and why others don't, they keep me up at night, but in a very curious way. And what I want to do today is give you something very valuable. There is a good chance that could happen, and that's my intent for the day. I assume that you are all here because you are curious about something, curious about what enduring business performance actually could look like. I'm going to tell you a bit of a story, and then we're going to have a conversation at the end where I'll be able to take some questions. I'm going to go quite fast, but what I'm going to hit you with is just one idea. I have a singular idea that you can take away today. So there's some volume of content, but actually there's just one idea. And how I would describe this idea is I see business leaders and businesses metaphorically at a table, and on that table are two apples. The one apple is dusty and dry and small and bruised, and the other apple is juicy and red and succulent. I am very curious why business leaders keep choosing the dry, bruised apple, but they do. And I'm going to explain why that is the case today. And I'm going to explain why choosing the juicy apple is actually distinctly possible and well within your grasp. But it's going to require you to think differently about yourself, about your career, about your work, about business, about performance. And that probably is my opening salvo, is everyone has got a story about business and about career. And that story is a narrative that determines whether your career can be fulfilling and remarkable and successful, or if business is something just to be endured, get to 65, retire, and fall over and hope you have a good last 20 years of your life. I want you to choose the juicy apple, but it might need you to change your story. So here we go. I'm not going to use slides a lot. Please make sure the slides are small and that you can see me rather. I don't want you to feel like you're in a presentation. I want you to feel like a story is being told to you. So make the slides small, try and see me and allow me to have a little bit of human connection with you.
Yeah, so you should be able to change view to speaker view, and then you should be able to drag the the windows to make the different windows bigger or smaller on Teams. So just give that a try so you can see Rowan clearly. Engage
Perfect.
with him eyeball to eyeball.
Yeah, ideally that would be cool. But if you have to stay off screen, that's all right too. Anyway, here goes the story, guys. Just open up some space, put all your meetings aside, all your to-dos aside. For the next 40 minutes, you might be hearing something transformational to your career. So allow that to happen. So the first port of call is I want to tell you what a business isn't. A business is not an organogram. This little thing has done a great disservice to business because it determines how people understand what a business is. It is not this. It is not gray. It is not fixed. It is moving and changing in a big ball of energy, as I'll talk to later. So take this out of your mind and maybe try to see business in a slightly different way. We all know that change is a constant. Everyone's tired of hearing that. It's like having your unpopular, awkward, irritating, distant cousin staying in your house. We all know change is here. We all know we've got to do something with it. But what we can say about change is that it has made the business world super, super complex. Very, very complex. Right now, we can talk about supply chain disruption, war, price increases, fuel absences, political disruption, climate, and AI. All of those are going on right now. So the thing that I want you to understand is that in order for a business to exist and to succeed and to thrive, it has got to be very cleverly constructed. It cannot be a drab affair like an organogram suggests, because the complex world is just going to eat that for breakfast. So what I want you to recognize is that whatever a business is in the world that we live in now, it's got to be well put together, thoughtfully put together, highly considered. And I want to show you what a business that is built to counterbalance this kind of complexity, what it looks like, what it actually is, because businesses are fundamentally not understood. The business world that you think you understand and you think that exists probably is not the one that does exist. And so that's what I want to share with you today is what's really happening in a business and how can you use that to your benefit. So this is the single idea for the day. I want you to think about the upstream, midstream, and downstream aspects of a business. I'm going to go into all of these in some detail, so you don't need to remember this, but I want you to remember that the upstream sits above the midstream, which sits above the downstream. Now, the upstream is the invisible stuff that produce the business. The midstream is actually what the business does, and then the downstream are the results that the business achieves. Now, so just to say that in a different way, the upstream drives the midstream drives the downstream, and the downstream determines the business's results. So businesses focus and obsess about the downstream for obvious reasons, because it's what we report on. The revenue, the profit, the return on equity, the growth rates. This is all good. We must do this. It's an important part of business. But a sole focus on downstream results creates, press the button by mistake, creates blind spots. And blind spots mean that we have a narrow perspective. We don't see the world around us. And so what that causes is leaders to just press harder and harder on the accelerator and wonder why this doesn't achieve any kind of demonstrable result. Okay, so only a downstream focus is a very, very dangerous thing for a business to be doing, because what it does is it dulls us. As business leaders, we become hollow and we become numb, and we aren't able to see the possibilities of what a business can be. I see that every day. I know very well what the possibilities of a business are now because I've seen these businesses being built. I've built some of them myself, or I've helped build them. And I'm going to tell you a story about a business later that has done this. But the dulling comes from the focus on the downstream, the obsession on the downstream. And unfortunately, as I've shown you in that diagram, the downstream is just a product of all the stuff that comes before it. So a business that focuses on the downstream is very, very susceptible to shocks. So then we talk about the midstream. This is what a business does, the decisions it makes, what it executes, the speed, the process efficiency, the follow through, the goal setting. And what this means is that whatever the downstream shows is because of what the midstream produces, right? And the science is pretty good on this now. Businesses are okay-ish. They're kind of solid-ish at this because the books are out there. Exclusive Books has racks and racks of books about the midstream. So it's not like this information doesn't exist. But a business that only does the midstream and the downstream is simply not going to be good enough to win on the complex stage that business finds itself in. It's just not good enough anymore. And what I see in all the businesses I work in, and this is a highly consequential statement, is that on average, they are at less than 50% of their potential. Less than 50%. That means a huge amount of upside and possibility is on the table for almost all businesses out there. There are very few that have gone beyond that. And so what this means is that a business that's only focusing on the mid and the downstream is not relevant to the world we live in. Okay? It's not relevant. And what that means, it doesn't mean it's irrelevant. It just doesn't mean it's perfectly relevant. And a business wants to be relevant to the societal conditions that it lives in. So here's what's happened in the work, in the history of work. 125 years ago, fossil fuels started being produced at scale. There were mom and pop stores littered around, and suddenly there were bigger machines, more people, bigger buildings, etc., etc. That is when the blueprint of business was created, the modern blueprint. And that blueprint, despite 125 years passing, is still the blueprint for 8 out of 10 businesses. This is very, very problematic because those businesses don't fit into society very well because they don't do this. They haven't been able to integrate humanity with performance. All businesses want performance, but we can't get away from the human thing now that leaders are leading, leaders are doing, leaders are choosing, leaders are taking businesses in certain directions. All of that is human by nature. And so what we need to be careful of is that we aren't building businesses that don't take humanity into account. And the truth about businesses is that they are, again, I said, they're not the organogram. They are the swirling ball of human energy that is constantly changing and moving and regressing and advancing. And if you can see business that way, as opposed to an organogram, then you can see business in a way that allows you to truly drive enduring business performance. But without this knowledge, without this insight that humanity needs to be integrated with performance, you are building a business that is not relevant for society, and you're basically causing yourself a rather large problem. So let's take the next step into the upstream. Now, here's where it gets interesting, guys. This is why this masterclass is called the Upstream Advantage. This is where your value lies, the new value that allows you to become relevant to the world that we're living in right now. Now, this is around how people think, the trust in the system, the human energy, the meaning in the mission, the alignment, the restoration. This is the stuff that comes into the top of the funnel. It gives it its power, its vibrancy. And if you don't get into the upstream in your businesses and you reside only in the downstream or only in the mid and downstream, you are robbing yourself of the vitality that comes from the upstream. Most businesses, most CEOs do not know that this upstream exists. They think it is some sort of ethereal, wishy-washy thing that is actually not of value. I can tell you with hand on heart that this is where modern business performance is going to be built because it shapes the quality of the human energy. Remember humanity and performance? Well, this is how you bring the humanity into the performance. And the truth of the matter is, if you don't do this, you are setting your business up for something called entropy, which is not a very sexy word, but what it means is the gradual decline of a business toward disorder, toward disorder. And this is important to know because a business cannot be left to not grow. If a business isn't being fueled by something, then it goes into entropy and it starts declining. And that is true of any system in nature. As soon as it starts being fed with vitality, it starts going backwards. So what we want is we want people fundamentally in your businesses to be two things. Two small little words, but they mean a great deal. We want people to be awake, which is the head, and we want people to be vital, which is the heart. And if this upstream stuff comes in the top of the funnel and it gets into the midstream and it gets into the downstream, it alivens everything, just brings it all alive. And I see this in my coaching practice, right? When I coach people, usually CEOs, I can tell immediately if they are awake, if they are light, what I call lights on, as I'll talk about later, or if they aren't. And if they are awake and vital, the world is their oyster. They can do just about anything. But if they lack one or both of these things, then they are going to be a far lesser leader. So what the awake and the vital gets you is good choices and life force. Now, if you want to break a business down to its most fundamental elements, these are them. If you want a good business, you've got to pay attention to this. Good choices happen thousands of times a day, or choices do. We hope that they are good choices. These choices are highly consequential, and they are a result of learning how to think, learning how to rationalize, learning how to reflect, learning how to assess. This is the upstream stuff. And when that is combined with life force, which just means your spirit, then these are the two things that power true, enduring business performance. So this is no small thing we're talking about now. It might be new to you, but I can guarantee you it's not a small thing. So what I want to tell you about is a quick story of a client of mine. They're a very consequential client for South Africa. They're building essentially a private Eskom through renewable energy. And by the year 2035, they will be generating enough energy to power this entire country and a few slices of the countries around us. It is a very complex business. They are producing electrons, they're selling electrons, and they're trading electrons in between. It is a very tough business. I walked in there 2 years ago and it was like Mordor. The lobby or the foyer was empty, the lights were off, there were a bunch of engineers doing spreadsheets. This business had no upstream, very little midstream, and obviously not much downstream. Fast forward 2 years later, they've got 95 people, they've got great strategy, a great culture, everyone is enduringly decent to each other. They bounce around this office with energy. This business is headed for great, great things. It has done a 2-year metamorphosis that is probably one of my most proud work products that I've produced over my time or helped produce. But the reason why I'm telling you this is that these kinds of transformations or transitions can happen in any business at any time, as long as there's someone paying attention to the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream axis in a business. However, this is not simple. What this business did was not simple, and they did their work. They had to unlearn old ways, learn new ways, and put themselves in the upstream so that they were challenging their awakeness and their vitality. They challenged them, they worked on them, they increased them, they got rid of stuff that they didn't need, and they added stuff that they did need. And this business did a complete transformation in 2 years, the consequences of which run into the tens of billions of rands of value. I think this business would probably have folded 2 years ago. I'm almost sure of that. It is now on track to be there probably aren't the numbers to describe how valuable this business could be in 8 years' time. So there is a lot riding on this stuff. It's not just about business technique. This is about return on equity. It's about profit. It's about performance. I love that stuff. It's good for us. But the way we are pursuing it is probably not right. So what I'm asking you to contemplate here is to what I call make the turn. Make the turn from an old way of leading into a new modern way of leading that allows you to really benefit and to thrive in these complex conditions that we are involved in right now, and which we cannot and will not ever be able to escape. It has already been done. People are doing this. This is not unproven. These kinds of businesses that are upstream driven already exist. So you're not trying to create the impossible. You're just trying to replicate what's already been done. You will likely need to be guided. The upstream stuff is complex. It's invisible, which makes it difficult, right? So you will likely need a guide on this journey. But you know, that is a personal choice of yours. Whether you make this turn is a personal choice. But what I want you to be clear about for yourself is the trade-offs of not making this choice. The consequences of trying to apply an old methodology, an old approach that no longer works to your business that you're probably spending 40 to 60 hours in a week over 25, 35, 40 years, getting that wrong is of consequence. And I want you to be very sober about whether you choose to make this kind of turn to an upstream driven business or not. But I'm sure you're wondering a little bit about the how. So let me talk about that. I would encourage you to ask the following 3 questions. You can either write them down or the following 4 questions. Because this is the way these things get started. Brave people ask brave questions, and these are brave questions. So try these on for size, guys. Is your business relevant to current societal conditions? Question 1. Do you feel awake and vital? Question 3. Are you truly fulfilled by your experience of work? And 4, is your business reflecting your aspirations for your life? Is your business reflecting your aspirations for your life? Is it giving you what you want? Now, I'm going to make some assumptions about why you turned up on this webinar. There is a reason. There is a reason. We know that. It might have been, hey, that looks cool. Or it might have been, wow, I need this. This seems like the right thing at the right time, or something in between. But here's a question that I want you to ask of yourself personally. And it's a question that was asked of me the other day by a colleague of mine. And it's a question I spent a lot of time thinking about. It really compelled me. And it goes like this. If you were the main character in a movie about yourself, if you're the main character in a movie about yourself, what would the audience be screaming at you to do or say? What would the audience be screaming at you to do or say? And what that's asking you to think about is like, what is being called for from you? Are you being called to make the turn in business and to do things differently? Are you being called to be a transformational voice in your business to help it make the turn? Are you being asked to say some brave things to people above you or around you? Those are big questions. And what it really boils down to is whether you are facing your career from a place of hope or from a place of survival. The two could not be more different. If you're going to apply that old 125-year-old blueprint, you are probably signing up for survival. If you are open to new ideas like upstream, midstream, downstream, and the importance of the upstream, the thinking, the quality of human energy, the trust, the alignment, all of the stuff we mentioned earlier, Are you ready to make that turn? Because then you are living a career of hope. So that is actually my hope for you, is that you could be the hero of the business that you're a part of, or the businesses that you are involved with through your board positions. Could you be that hero? That is my hope for you. And I'm writing a book at the moment that's being published in September, and my co-writer, when we were talking about why I was writing the book and what the book was going to look like and what kind of format we should choose for the book and the number of words, etc., he said something very simple to me. He said, write a book that your grandchildren will be proud of. And that really stuck with me, because the invocation to you is to build a business, shape a business that your grandchildren can be proud of. It's a really, really nice, powering energy in a business. And it's the type of energy that can open you up to ideas like the upstream stuff, which are new and not visible and slightly trickier and have language to them that might not feel familiar. If you are building a business for your grandchildren, you will be open to those sorts of things because they are futuristic by nature. And that's really what I hope for you today. Because what drives me is that I know the world does not need more businesses. We don't need more businesses. We just need better businesses. And that's what powers my work. It's what encourages me to be doing these things like I'm doing with you today. I want you to know that there is a better way, that there's a red, juicy apple waiting for you, but you've got to make the turn toward it. It's not going to happen for you. You've got to do the work, but the rewards are massive, not only at a fulfillment level, but at a bottom line level. And both of those matter. Okay, that was a lot of talking.
Thank you, Rowan. Thank you, Rowan.
I'm going to stop there. That was half an hour. So it's exactly what I hoped. And now we've got time to talk.
So many reflections, and it really feels like so many things are coming together at the moment and saying the same thing, but in different ways, with different stories, different contexts. And I'm just thinking ISO 37000 standard, which is the new governance standard, right in the middle is purpose and values. It's purpose. We need to understand what is the purpose of organization before we do anything else. We've been talking about purpose and promise, and it's the top of our governance compass. We've been talking about this stuff for 16 years, but it's always like when we're having a conversation with a business, it's like it's a new thing. No one's really thought about what is the core purpose of this organization. And even in a course I was running this week, yesterday, hell, we're talking about what is a company? It's a juristic person that's immortal. Well, it's only immortal if it's got energy to continue to survive. Yeah. If you're actively trying to kill this thing, it's not going to be immortal. And so many conversations I've had at workshops with entrepreneurs is, so what's your legacy? Put your hands up if you want to leave a legacy. And so many people have said, no, I just want to build this to sell. So you're never going to get to grandchildren. You're never going to really focus on the long-term infinite purpose if you're just thinking about building to sell. So it's fascinating that all of the stuff you've said in different ways, is pieces of it are starting to come together in all kinds of different contexts. So it's fantastic. I feel energized just thinking about the possibilities of this kind of stuff. Awesome. So yeah, thank you. Any other comments from anyone in the audience? You should be able to unmute. We'd like to see you as well if you are talking. Any questions, comments, maybe real life stories about how this kind of stuff has impacted you individually? Bernd, you come on screen. You're the first person to be vulnerable. Did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, no, it's a great presentation. Thanks a lot, Rowan, and especially the new ideas as well. Nice to get some refreshing info there. I think the big thing for me always that I ask is, what's the goal of a business? Now, the goal of a business is to solve a problem for someone else or to help someone. And the bigger the problem is that you're solving, or the bigger impact you have, and the more people you have, obviously the the ultimate benefit is, or the reward you get for that value add. But interesting on the legacy, I always say, okay, so what that then translates in is any business must survive to make a profit. So your goal units are always profit. I mean, you can have all niceties to say, no, we look after the environment, or we're a non-profit organization. But, at the end of the day, a company must make a profit now and in the future. But that and in the future part is where the important thing comes. And if we change that to in the future, how long? That's the question then, how long? That's 1,000 years for me always. I say, let's look at 1,000 years. How do we create a 1,000-year business? Because then automatically we start looking at, okay, bigger things in the immediate profit this month or this year. Then things start coming into your community, your society, your employees, your environment, those bigger picture things. So my question is, I like this whole upstream environment, the vision, the strategy, all of that. How do we build a 1,000-year business?
Yeah. So thanks for the question, Bernd. Really, really like a question. And I just want to confirm what you said about profit. We need to love profit, because profit at the end of the day is the sole accurate marker of a business's performance. And if we're not comfortable with profit, then we shouldn't be in business. When you choose business, you choose profit. It comes with the territory. So I just wanted to double click on that. Bernd, I don't know if it's about 1,000 year, but I don't know if it's the number that matters, because it could be 100 year, you probably get the same thing. But what I'm appreciating is the care and the craft that comes into one's leadership when you're thinking long term. I always talk about the difference between someone who's an owner and a renter. If you're renting a flat and there's a crack in the ceiling, you don't care about that crack. But if you're the owner, you care differently about that crack. So there's something that comes, Bernd, when someone has a long-term view that somehow gathers a whole bunch of things along with it. One is wisdom, one is perspective, one is long-termism, one is care. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. I don't know if there's one way of building 100 or 1,000-year business, but I do know that wisdom and choice and perspective absolutely are requirements. I think it can probably be done in a few different ways, but those things are what give rise to the choices that keeps a business around in 1,000 years. And I imagine the nature of the wisdom and the nature of the choices will need to adopt with time over the 1,000 years, but it will never go away as being the powering thing of good leadership choices, wisdom, long-termism. So I'm not giving you a direct answer because I can't, but that's what I think leads to a 1,000-year business. And in fact, there's a very remarkable business in Namibia that I've worked with called Gondwana. They're kind of the Singita of Namibia. They literally have officially a 1,000-year strategy. And that's a publicly traded company. So they have done it, or are in the process of doing it. So it's entirely possible. Thank you for the question. Cool question.
Thank you very much for the question. And maybe something that came up recently when I was talking to a family business that will also help in thinking about how do you make a business that continues multi-generational. And we were talking about where things typically go wrong in a family business is the first generation are focused on creation, and the second maybe thinking about creation, but there starts to become an element of consuming the riches you've accumulated in the first generation. And often where it goes horribly wrong is the third generation is just consuming. And if you continue generation to generation to generation with a focus on the creation part, you will continue to build something. You'll continue to renew this body. It needs to be renewed to be immortal. It needs to continue to have things recreated in the new reality of the new society all the time. Whereas if you're just focusing on consuming the fat you've built up over time, it's just going to get thinner and thinner and thinner until it dies. So that's typically a phrase I'll go back to because it's very easy to understand And then you can start to see it much more easily in the way that people act. Are we creating or are we consuming?
Yeah.
And we're going through that process with our family because we're in the third generation now, and at least one member of our family would love to be heavily involved in the consuming part, and other members of their family are already heavily involved in the creating part. So we're in that dynamic right now. It's very real for us as a family.
Interesting. Yeah. Let's
Any other questions? Mary, you looked like you were trying to turn video on, but did you have a question? Or Cosmos? Go for it. You've got a hand up.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Can I, because of the network, can
No
I ask that?
Just,
okay,
we can hear you.
Mine is just comments around philosophical thing, because I think the new school of thought is that when you're building or driving or even transforming businesses, there's the transitional aspect of it, that there is a more to business survival other than profit. I mean, you have to look at the future, the environment, and what have you, which I think is beginning to take shape as a more important component of how businesses should be going forward, right? And that's one aspect. The other one is with regards to goal congress in terms of the people that you are building the business with. As you did talk about being awake and vital and all what have you, right? But then you also must recognize the demographics, that the more likely people that are going to help you run and build that business are most probably going to be Gen Z. Now, the Gen Z value system is completely different. They're not interested in long-term value, what have you. They just want to consume, for lack of a better word, which I think maybe it's an aspect that we mustn't also don't forget. Of course, there's an AI element in it, right? That things are not static. And then whether being awake and vital in the midst of all this AI and the rate at which AI is changing the business models, whether that philosophy will help you live, because you need to transform almost every other 6 months now, because somebody did say that organizational structures are out of the window. So I do subscribe to that. The speed at which AI is doing things is is just making a whole lot of things irrelevant. Thank you for now.
Thank you, Cosmos. If I could just comment quickly, I appreciate that perspective. And what I would say is that you are correct. New ideas about what businesses can be, should be, might become, they are experienced differently by different populations and generations. So you are correct in saying that. I can only speak to my experience across my client base of the last 30 odd years, that the Gen Zs and the younger people, they are the ones that are most open to the upstream stuff. They're the ones that are most displeased by the dryness of the midstream stuff. And so, what happened at work, in workplaces all over the world during COVID, is people suddenly had the distance to separate themselves from their business. And what they looked back on was a business that only had midstream. And that their response was like, nah, that's not that compelling to me. And so one of the big favors COVID did was it actually forced businesses to go, okay, we are dry. We are a dry, hollow kind of a vessel. What are we missing? How do we fill this vessel up? And what they filled it up with was things in the upstream. And Cosmos, I would encourage you to stay the course on this upstream stuff, because I've actually found it to be very much welcomed by the younger generations.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that as well, because I think the younger generations, because we've got kids in their 30s and late 20s, they're very much more driven by the purpose and the potential and the sustainability of the option that they're driving towards. And yes, it must make a profit. So they may consume and create and consume and create and consume and create in shorter loops. They may not accumulate massive wealth and then only spend it when they're in their 70s. They may spend things more quickly, but they're very much looking about what is the purpose of this organization? What are the values of this organization? What is it trying to achieve? What impact is it trying to create? That's much more important actually in a lot of cases than the salary or the benefits or the other stuff. So I think things are shifting, but there's a driving force to move forward with strategy, move forward with purpose, move more forward with more meaning than just, as you say, that midstream of cash generation machine kind of thing. It's, well, what is this thing for? What is the point? Why are we doing this?
Think
Babalo, you had your hand up. Sorry, Rowan, before you get Babalo, you had your hand up. Don't want to miss your question or comment.
Yes, I do. Comment and question. First comment being that thanks so much, Ron. It's a lovely framework, and I'm just astounded by how much it resonates with stuff that we're doing on the holistic well-being front. Right, because then that is very person and human centered, and how that can then be translated into business as an organism, as it were. So it's really, really, really nice to see. And in fact, even the questions that one is posing on the making the turn, the questions that sound very familiar to me when I coach leaders and always use values-based models when I do that coaching, especially because ultimately we're targeting that holistic well-being, and purpose is a very, very big part of it. So it's really great to see. I'm going to steal it. I can promise you that for sure. So the second one, which is maybe question, part comment, you asserted that we maybe don't need more businesses, but better businesses. But I don't know if it's a matter of better or more, because and I'm going to relate it back to my experience, because then when I think about the long-term sustainability and I think about my generational legacy, there's nothing that pains me more than the missing middle concept, wherever one applies it. And of course, I'm South African, in the most unequal country in the world. And therefore, these missing middle opportunities, actually, I think they do mandate that we think of not only better, but in fact, we start a very concerted focus on this missing middle, because we can't really be dealing with public versus private, and I'm in healthcare, with NHI definitely not ever being the solution that we're looking for. But, we're looking for missing middle solutions across the spectrum. And I think we need more of that. And it's not just about better, it's about a different purpose altogether.
Yeah, that would be my connotation of better, is just, I said up front, I just want to make this point again. Businesses that are not carefully constructed and cleverly constructed are going to get nailed. They just don't have the wherewithal to withstand the complexity. So my version of better are these businesses that are built with craft. If you go on my website, lockstep.global, you'll see I talk about transcendent businesses. Babalwa, those are the businesses that I think the world needs. Transcendent businesses that go well above and well over all the outdated business practices from over a century ago and forge away ahead, driven by the upstream advantage. So I think you and I are very on the same page.
I've just put in, I saw one of the links you'd sent to me, Ron, about the story of Upstream Business Miracles. So I've put that link in the chat for anybody who's interested.
Thank you. And that's a real story of a client. It's worth reading. Well, if I say so myself, I think it's worth reading because it is a story, an anecdote.
Yeah, maybe to add something to your point, Babalo, and what we've seen in terms of which companies add the most jobs as a simple metric. It's really hard to get from 0 to 1. And we've had a lot of focus on startups, but that's the most difficult, time-consuming, money-consuming, stressful piece to get is from 0 to 1. Whereas it's much easier to get from 1 to 10 or 10 to 100. And there's been a lot less focus on trying to facilitate that transformation. And that a lot of that comes from what Rowan's talking about. helping those organizations understand they got to this point, but they've lost that purpose. They've lost that energy. They've lost that trust in the market often because they've got comfortable or they've started to drift in terms of quality or delivery, whatever it might be. But if you can fix those things with an existing base to build on, an existing foundation that you can strengthen, you can create jobs and opportunities and value so much quicker. But what typically happens now is that business fails. Then you have to go back to the 0 to 1 again. And it might be 5-10 years before you've built up other businesses that can employ those 100 people who've lost their jobs or 1,000 people who've lost their jobs. So I think that missing middle is we're not focusing on the middle enough. We're focusing too much on the most difficult part of business, which is starting something. And not very many people are good at starting something. They'll get it to a point of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 employees, and then that they top out there because it's about their skill and ability, not their ability to build a team and build this liquid flowing energy ball of an organization and taking that forward.
Yeah.
We've got 10 minutes on the clock. Any other comments, questions, stories anybody wishes to share? Is Harry still on the call? He must have some stories to share. No, I think he's dropped. Oh, Harry, yes. No, he's dropped off. Anybody else? Otherwise, any closing remarks, Rowan?
I would encourage everyone to be very indulgent. I think people settle for mediocre experiences of work and for mediocre examples of businesses far too easily. And there's just no need. The answers of what new modern businesses look like are available. They've been done. They've been written about. And so I would just encourage everyone to require more, to demand more of their own work experience and of their business, because if you demand more of your business and you ask it in the right way, it'll give it to you. Businesses are highly responsive, highly malleable. All they need is someone to be asking the big questions and to be holding the big dream. And if you can do both of those things, then you'll be surprised how quickly your business responds. So be indulgent and require more of your work life would be my invitation.
Oh, thank you. And if you'd like to arrange a call or a meeting with either Rowan or myself, just put in Rowan yes or Tim yes in the chat, and we'll follow up. Otherwise, we'll be sending the recording link to everyone who's attended, and our contact details if you want to pick up the conversation on some of the how do you implement, how you take this forward in your own organizations. So thank you everybody for your time.
Thanks everyone.
We had such a good turnout. It's great to see everybody on the call.
Thank you for having me, Tim. Thanks everyone.
Only pleasure. That was very powerful. Thank you very much, Rowan.
Thank you.
And we'll have to do a repeat of this one, I think, because this was very well received and I think very much needed.
Yeah, happy to. Always happy to. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you and goodbye.